Are you just starting art and do not know where to start? You're just picking up watercolors and overwhelming information that is available everywhere is just, well, overwhelming. Then stay with me. In this video, I will tell you 3 main tips that I came up with as a total beginner. Hi guys, my name is Luba and I'm not a professional artist. I am a complete beginner of learning watercolors. I don't even know how to call that. I'm not an artist yet, and I don't know if I will become one, but I really want to learn and to paint in watercolor for my own pleasure. I started about a year ago and then got really discouraged. It was really difficult. First of all, there is really a lot of information. Second of all, the information can be misleading or confusing, conflicting. And that made me really frustrated at one point when things didn't work out and I didn't really know where to start. If you're a beginner just like me, who doesn't have any background in any other medium of art, if you do not know how to draw or paint, if you have never had experience with art, then that was me a year ago. You're just like me. In this video, I'm gonna tell you 3 main tips that I came up with, so let's do it together. Tip number 1. The first and very important thing is to know your paper. A lot of artists say that, but they also don't really explain it that well. Okay, you really need to use good paper. Use 300-gram cotton. This is something that I've heard 100 times in different videos and classes. But it's not always true. Because as a beginner, you sometimes want to understand if you are gonna ever even stick to it. If you want to continue watercolor, you don't know. And sometimes when you're not using the wet-on-wet technique, you don't really need the 300-gram cotton paper. And when you're just a beginner and you want to intuitively see if you're gonna like it or not, you don't wanna spend 30 euros on a notepad that you might never use in the end. You might not have that money, or you might not want to invest it initially. So knowing your paper is actually something that is really important for us beginners to understand what you really need to invest in and what you don't need to invest in. Many people talk about paints and brushes, but I really want to explain a little bit about paper, and I'll make another video about it as well. So when you're gonna practice, when you're gonna do the lines and drills, and maybe you're gonna draw some small drawings, you really do not need the 300-gram cotton paper, because there are high chances that you're just gonna throw this. After you're done, you might throw this out into the bin. Why would you pay so much money for really nice 300-gram cotton paper and then throw it out in a couple of hours? So for practicing and drills, really, it's okay to use very thin watercolor paper. I still like to use watercolor paper, but it doesn't have to be 300 gram. It can even be 200. And that's okay, because you're not gonna use so much water. So the main thing is that the more water you use, the thicker your paper should be, actually. So if you want to try a painting with a wet-on-wet technique, yeah, you should really go and buy some good 300-gram paper. Again, in the beginning, I didn't see the need of buying cotton paper, because to be honest, cotton paper can cost like 40 euros, 30-40 euros for 20 pages, and that's expensive. So I would buy very good quality but not cotton paper, 300 gram, and it worked really well. You might want to test some different pads of what works best, but I will also record the video and explain a little bit because I have tons of pads already by now. I will give you an example of why you really need to know your paper. In the beginning, I bought a really good pad and I was drawing on it and I was like, wow, this is not even cotton, but 300 gram, but it's great. And then I tried some other paper which was 70% cotton, and it said, I think, 260 gram, and it was horrible. It didn't work at all with wet-on-wet technique at all. It was going like all crazy. So it's really important to try maybe some pads and really go for a mid-range, maybe 300 gram thick paper for wet-on-wet technique. But you really can use something simpler and cheaper to get you started so that you don't really break your bank. Tip number 2, I would always recommend to start small. And there are 2 parts in this. First of all, don't expect a lot. Baby steps, right? So try to learn a little bit. Don't expect that you will become a great artist in a week or 2. It doesn't happen. This takes persistence and practice and a lot of time. So start small, don't worry. You will get there if you want to. And another thing about starting small is really don't use big pieces of paper. I mean, seriously, like who cares if you have an A5 paper and not an A4 or A3? Start with A5. It felt for me much less intimidating. And smaller pieces of paper give you result much faster in a way that you can draw something a little bit faster. You don't spend so much time. When you're a beginner, it's sometimes daunting to draw something big and complicated, and especially if it's on A3 paper. One drawing I had, and that was probably the last one I drew, and after that I gave up for a while, was in the course. There was a painting, quite a difficult composition of a vase and some fruit on an A3 paper. It took me, I think, almost 10 days to finish it. It was like a huge thing for me because I was painting in the evenings when kids were asleep as a nice hobby. I have good lights and I would draw and paint. And after painting that painting, I kind of gave up. It was really discouraging. It was too long. I lost my interest. So in the beginning, it's really important to practice a lot and to try yourself in different techniques and try yourself in different things. It is really important in the beginning to see some results. And when you are drawing something on an A3, you just get discouraged. And it's intimidating, really. So once you get the skills a little bit up and once you are more comfortable with how you draw, how you paint, you will get there, you know? This is how I see that. I will get there. Sometimes I feel like I want to draw or paint something on an A3 paper. And yes, it can take me a bit longer, but I also choose very simple landscapes for that. Something that I follow from a video on YouTube, for example. But in the beginning, it's really not a big deal. And I would really recommend to start small. Take smaller pieces of paper and learn and learn and learn. And tip number 3, practice makes perfect. Well, practice actually doesn't make perfect. Practice makes improvement. Yeah, so you are not gonna get perfect. You cannot be perfect ever in your whole life. There's always a chance to grow. So practice, 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 and you will get better and better and better. And that also works 2 ways. First, it's about regularity. You really need to practice regularly. And that's what I did for a time, for a couple, like a month or 2. I was basically drawing every day, and then I kind of gave up. And when I have taken up watercolors again a couple of weeks ago, I felt like I lost a lot of knowledge. I have to start kind of anew. I have to go through color theory and basics. And it's good because I can share that with you as well, the start of my journey, but you really lose practice and you forget, right? You forget, your hands forget. And that about hands is another thing, that why it's important to practice and not paint along with some instructor or a video on YouTube or class, but actually practice strokes and how well your hand can manage like the brushes. Because you really need to have a very stable hand and strong hand that would have very straight lines and wouldn't go like... The pressure has to stay the same when you want to make one straight line, you know? So those things, they are also practicable, so to say. You can also practice those things. And it's really important to do those. So I didn't understand that at first, and very often I was really dissatisfied with the results because some of the brush strokes were nice, but some of them were atrocious, were horrible. And I could spoil a painting by just seeing that I don't have a good brush stroke. So Generally, I would definitely recommend practicing, and especially also including practice of your strokes and your using your brushes and pencils. I think that's important, and that's what I'm gonna start now. I'm starting a course on drills, and I'm gonna share it with you as well in the next videos. And just a very quick reminder, sign up for my channel, stay with me, let's have a community of beginners, let's share our ideas, let's share our tips, let's share our progress. It would be great to hear from you guys. I would like to meet all of the people who are also with me on this journey in watercolor or any other actually medium. It's always a bit scary to start, but I'm sure we can do it together. Stay in touch. Bye.